Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. Thank you for joining us today. As I have always shared with you, we talk about issues that impact us. Politically, socially, there is a lot happening around the world, in the country we live in or the country that we belong to. But there are issues that are germane to our life, germane to our living. And today we are specifically going to talk about the human aspect of our lives, the human potential aspect of our life, getting a job. I remember seeing a movie called Dave. It was about somebody who becomes a president through a very interesting channel of processes that happen. But there was a moment in that movie which caught my attention when he said that when the happiness that you see on the face of a man or a woman when he gets a job is unbeatable. And that's the satisfaction we get, we enter the job market. We have known this aspect even in this country for that matter. Job is an issue that always attracts the common people. To that end, we are going to talk about human potential. What makes one tick in a job? What jobs one must do? What is available? What is the opportunity? And how do we capitalize on that opportunity to realize our own full potential? Because that's another important part, that we have to do our best. So human potential is all about transforming yourself to do, achieve, and be what you were not there earlier on. To discuss all these issues, and it is totally current in our environment, I have great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Jitendra Muchal. He runs a company called Starlet. He's a human resource guy. And I have a great pleasure in welcoming him, primarily also because it's very rare to find people from human resources to speak on this topic, and because which affects everybody. So welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Mr. Vibhuti. Thanks for having me here.
So talking about this human potential part is that, in my scenario of, in my leadership responsibility, whenever somebody told me, I have done my best of a particular assignment that I gave them, I did my best, I always used to ask them, how did you know that was your best?
Right.
And there used to be a lull or a silence because we don't know exactly what is our total potential, what is our capacity to do something. To that end, the leadership role is all about inspiring him, finding what he or she is good at and making them excel at it. So tell me about how does one find a job? Because that's the biggest thing. From technology to human resources to arts, science, music, sports. How does one find a job, and what one young man or mid-management people should be looking at or ought to be looking at?
Thank you. You've raised something which impacts everybody on this globe. But I will try. So to the first point that you were mentioning about leadership, I will take two instances or two examples. One from actually Indian mythology and one from corporate America to reiterate what you just said about leadership and unleashing the potential of an individual. So as we all recall, when from Ramcharitmanas, when Hanuman and Jamvant were at the banks of the ocean, and as per mythology or as per Ramcharitmanas, Hanumanji did not have the feeling that he had the potential that he could actually cross the ocean and go to the other side in just one jump. It was Jamavant who inspired, motivated, cajoled, and even pulled his leg that you can do it. Mm-hmm. And then he was able to do it. So that was a perfect instance of what leadership can unleash within an individual. Other instance coming to corporate America is when, let's say, if you look at a company like Apple, all the books that have been written about Steve Jobs and all often quote individuals that have worked with him, including Tim Cook and others, where they have said that the work environment was extremely stressful. We had, deadlines which seemed almost impossible, But after that, what we were able to produce, we are happy and we are going to be proud for the entire life that we did this. Again, an example of what leadership can bring out of you. Coming to the job market, or how does one go about looking a job? I think it can be answered depending on what stage of life you are. So, if somebody just come out of a college or a school, and some people don't even get that opportunity that they can complete a college. A job for a school student, your children or my children or people that we know, they started working in either dropping the newspaper earlier times or now working at their school or doing some summer internship. So that's probably the first step. And then you get into the official job market where, now you try to get into a proper job. If you are in a college or an institution, often you get a career center that helps you, or you are now looking out. The bigger challenge is the ones once you are already in a job and now you're looking for the next one or the next one. Then comes your skills, your network, your ability to look around in the marketplace as to what is needed and what you are bringing to the table.
That's so very well put. And this is an area in which we have done a lot of work. I'm talking about myself, our company that we work with. One of the important things is that, like you said very correctly, about entry point, midpoint, and at the senior levels. For the entry point, please convey this to your children, or if you are a young man watching this is my experience of life, is find your talent first. Any smart guy or anybody can get a job, from flipping a burger or creating an innovation. We all will get a job. That's not a challenge. The important part is identifying your talent. I'm talking about the beginner stage. And it is relevant in the mid-level as well. So when you find your talent, you build your skills around that talent. And then comes a very important element called value systems. So every profession in the world has criterion that makes one successful beyond his potential or to reach his potential. So let's take two examples. Sports is my favorite. If you wanted to be, and a lawyer, legal profession is another example that I prefer to quote about. So if you want to be a lawyer, you get an LLB degree or LLM degree, whatever it is. But then what makes you a good lawyer? A good lawyer is somebody who has great command over the language, has ability to do research, has ability to influence the jury or the judge without authority. He has the ability to repartee. He has the ability to read between the lines. He has to be a speech maker. He needs to know the skill of debating. That's just one example. Think about it from that point of view, that your skills, your talent, your skill sets, and your value systems determine how successful you are. And this applies even more when you started a job and then you begin to enter the mid-level thing. So tell me about that part of it. Is that how does a person who migrates from at the starting point comes to the mid-level, where does the challenge hit? That people want to change a job. People want to move something to do something better. I have done this work for 10 years. Let me do something else. Let me try something else. How would you say that transformation, that change of attitude in understanding the business, that can help him?
Thanks. I think, again, coming to your point about, so first I'll address the point about your USP or your talent and all. Two ways it comes about. And the first is obvious that, a person, taking your law example, a person has been a good debater right from beginning, has been writing very well, has a command over the language, is able to hold his own or her own, has a natural inclination towards that subject or calling. And if they study and are ready to put in the hours and the effort, then you can say reasonably well that they have the making of being a lawyer or something like that. The other thing which often comes about is that when people are trained in just either engineer or in normal commercial subjects and all, when they are working in an environment, in an organization, company, often it is the situation that brings them or tells them what their area of expertise could be. Right. It could come because they were landed up in a project, or because they had a supervisor or a manager who gave them that opportunity that they worked on something which they had no idea about.
Right.
I'm actually a chartered accountant by education. I'm a CA from India, and I had no clue that I would be in the HR field when I would be in the United States. And when I came into this country, I started managing a very small company. The person who's probably, I do not know what the person or the team saw in me, but without having any software knowledge, they were ready to take a bet on a person with a commercial background, but they felt that the person had outgoing skills and would be able to provide the management ability that was needed, because everybody else was from the IT and software side. So I came in a company, in a software company, everybody was talking only code, and I had no clue about code. But the company felt that no, that's what, because we already have a lot of code people. They are there to do their work, but to drive the company forward, to develop business relations, to expand into, we are not looking for one more software person.
So you are a wonderful example of being an accountant into an HR. I do know of an accountant who was also in technology, and he did technology audit of all innovations. People find interesting opportunities in that process. Now, there's something that you said very important, is that somebody thought about you, that you are a better in the domain that he was trying to take you out to. And that's a very important point. You are very fortunate that somebody, so we have a saying that language creates a reality. It doesn't matter what you think you are. It's the languages that you use, your language of performance and action, that allows people to form an opinion about you or assessment about you. So your friend who formed that assessment did that on the basis of what he saw, not what you knew.
Correct.
That's something you must bear in mind, that your actions, your persona, is what I was talking about earlier, that your values is something about your value systems, something about your skills. And though you were an accountant in India because you're good in maths or whatever, and I'm a lousy accountant if you ask me, but I would split a balance sheet as an analyst very well. So these are skills of a different kind. So share with me your experience of how people transition to take up something what they didn't know they were really good at. How does that happen?
I think, again, it comes at the age factor. So age as in age in your career. So if you are in the initial or mid to initial stages, it's almost just like a leap of faith. Either in the organization, and mostly not in the organization, in your supervisor or boss or manager, whatever you call, that you are ready to take up whatever that is, so as I said, an accountant getting into HR, or you often find even people who've been in technology get into marketing, or people who've been, supply chain getting into something else. And again, don't want to get into corporate examples, but you would often find in most companies, especially the startups which have grown dramatically, they do not have the ability to have multiple people specialized in each role. So when Microsoft may have started, when Google may have started, when Apple may have started, or even when Ford may have started, Mr. Ford may not have had the ability or capital or wherewithal to hire one supply chain person, one HR person, one accountant. Whoever was with him, man or woman, was started wearing all those hats. It was Mr. Ford who gave them the ability, and it was those individuals who said, okay, yeah, we'll do it. We'll read it, we'll figure it out, and they were able to do it. And those individuals, they may not be experts in that particular domain, but the ability to manage so many things, and that I realize comes in very handy, especially in a startup to mid-sized companies, where people are looking for individuals who can wear multiple hats, because the hat that you have to wear after 1 year, you don't even know that.
So the role of learning becomes very key in it.
Yes.
Because it's when you learn, what they say is that you have to learn new set of practices to manage, to organize, and to lead for betterment of everybody around you. So one of the things that we talk about, and I would like your thoughts on that, is continue to reinvent yourself as an individual. You are not only one-dimensional. You may have talent that may spur on because something else happens. So I'm a banker, he's an accountant, and I do know one thing for sure, with due respect to both the professions. No entrepreneurship will ever take place if the entrepreneur consults an accountant and a banker, because both the professions are completely risk averse. The entrepreneur is all about risk taking. So the point which I'm trying to make is we all have to do a role. You have to find what you are good at. We will switch on to a couple of other topics to discuss soon after this short break. Welcome back. In this segment, we will dwell upon an event or the events that are shaping the job market. The artificial intelligence part of it. We have all read, and it kind of scares you when you read that most of the jobs in manufacturing have shifted over to artificial intelligence. Technology is a major disruptor for all of us. So the question that arises is that how do I prepare myself for that moment? And as I was driving to this for this particular program, I heard about the fact that Brookings Institution released a report that artificial intelligence will take about millions of jobs in years to come. We haven't even imagined. The question here is, how do we prepare for that? People who are in the scenario of 10, 12 years of experience, how do we get ready for the next change that is coming? We don't even know. I mean, 30 years ago when I started my job, I did not know I would ever work for a TV or I would have a TV program of my own. I had no clue about that, but it happened. And as somebody said to me, and a very nice IIT engineer once told me, good things happen to good people accidentally, provided they are ready for it. So the question here is, change that happens, as a very nice saying goes, I like to read that to you actually, that learning in a time of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. This is a quote by Eric Hoffer. So the point here is that how do we prepare? So when you are evaluating and creating placement scenarios, how do you encounter a situation that when somebody is applying for a job, he's not ready, or he is still thinking 10 years ago? How does that challenge you address with your people that come to you?
Vibhuti, that is actually a very, very pertinent and a very valid kind of situation that we often face, and especially with individuals who have been either in a particular organization or company for an extended period of time. There is no short or simple answer to it, unfortunately. That there is no thermometer or there is no measurement that you can do with an individual where he or she will get a feeling that they have been out of it. I think coming to your point that you mentioned before the break about learning, and it's extremely difficult because it's all, if I were to apply it to me also, that okay, can I keep up to everything that is happening? It is not that easy. But the answer actually isn't that only, is that we have to take learning or understanding of newer skills. So there are going to be two parts. One is the value system of working, which is teamwork, which is confidence, which is being able to bring your best to the job in terms of being fully available and fully committed. Now that is irrespective whether the world is of a car or an AI or a cell phone or a Microsoft computer, because those value systems are needed irrespective. That's the fundamental of how you can be a good worker or a team member or a businessman. Now coming to the point about how you are able to keep up with the things, the people that I have found who have been able to stay ahead of the curve, or those have been riding the surf, are only those who are constantly on the surf. And you can extend this example not just to business, you can take it, you mentioned about sports. So let's talk about sports, and we'll go back again to our native country, India, and let's take example of cricket, which is, India's passion, religion,
right,
everything,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Now imagine MS Dhoni, when he started getting into cricket, he was only playing probably test matches, and then he started playing into IPL, which is a 50 over,
Right.
and then you have a 2020, which is a 20 over.
Right.
Now the same individual, if you are working in the test matches, which is a 5-day and then 50 over and 20 over, unless he is in that position that he is constantly learning,
Right.
there is no way that he can be performing in the format or the players that we succeed. I think it is the same example. Just yesterday, CNBC actually published a list on their website. I do not know how authentic it is, of 50 top individuals in Amazon.com. So they picked up Jeff Bezos, and then they said that these are 8 people that report to Bezos. And then within those 8 people, who are the 7-8 people that report to each of them. I went through that list and I realized that out of that, at least 40 people have been with the company Amazon for a period of 8 to 10 years. Now, one thing is common, that 8 to 10 years ago, what Amazon was doing and what Amazon today is doing is miles apart. Those people must have been there in the company only because each of them must have been constantly learning.
Right.
Because they also don't know tomorrow what business Amazon or Bezos would want to get into. Now, if they would say that, Jeff, I was very good at books. Now, you're asking me to sell, shampoos also, and tomorrow you're asking to sell, DVDs also, and now we are getting into AWS, but I was only a books guy. Bezos will tell him that, look, we are in the customer support business, customer obsession business. If you are only going to be stuck with books, I don't think you are the person with this journey. But if you are ready to work that, okay, whatever tomorrow the customer needs, we will be ready to keep learning, then you and me are a party of this. Best example of learning.
This is very, very valuable. This is very valuable primarily because in the talk about sports part of it. So I remember when the first 50 over game was played, Sunil Gavaskar scored
36 runs in 60 overs.
in as many overs. Yeah. Now, he will not qualify to be in any Indian team today, whether it is 50 or 20 overs. But the question is, to use the samurai language, they say, expect nothing, be ready for everything. That's true life is all about. So the point which comes out is that while we are in a job, we are enhancing our competency with reference to that job. And we do not realize that competency in a job doesn't mean your life ends there. Because every competency that comes to you has an impact on your character, or your character determines the impact on the competency of something. So if you ask me to lie, I'll never be able to do that, period. That's my value system. I have never lied to anybody. I don't lie because I'm not that smart enough to be able to keep the spin of lies in future conversations. So it is easy to be honest. Point is, that's your value system. So now the traditional methods of learning are collapsing. The traditional methods of learning were all about attending a class, learning some new theory, gaining knowledge, and considered information, and we thought, now I know everything. Now this is a very important part. Knowing doesn't mean you know it, that you can do it. To take the sports example again, I can definitely talk about cricket and how the team must play. But if the bat is in my hand, if I can't implement it, we can't do that. So whatever you want to learn, the learning today is very different. Learning is skills. Many people talk about the soft skills. Now I remember one very leading Indian entrepreneur in this country at a Thai conference. When people asked him, what do you attribute your success to? They were not related to his work at all. He attributed his all success to the soft skills that you alluded to earlier on. You mentioned about teamwork, how he was ahead of the competition. These were all matters which are not related to the job. So share with me your experience that how does one get into the learning part and become an eternal learner? Well, there is a challenge in learning. Learning and competency is of a different kind. Now, competency can be you are a beginner in any profession or anything. Beginner, you novice, then you become proficient, you become expert, and then you become a master. Majority of us lie in the region of proficiency and expert. But when we meet how do we become a master of something? Share your thoughts on that.
I think, we do not, we've been fortunate enough to have been able to probably work, if not as candidates, but maybe as clients, some people that we come across at different companies in different capacities who we can call as master of their trade, whatever their trade.
Federer and Nadal are masters in tennis.
Yes.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli are heading towards,
yes.
Sachin is already a master, Virat is heading towards mastery.
So some things that I've found common, and again, irrespective of the genre. So we can say sports as a genre, we can say films as a genre, we can say business as a genre. Few things that have been there is, and that is, so these are probably cut across. One is never having those individuals, they may have whatever that external persona, but I think internally there is that quest which is always hunger, which is always there. For a businessman, the hunger may be growth. For Federer or Serena, it may be another Grand Slam after whatever 20s that they've gone to. For Virat Kohli, it is another century after his 34 or 35, and it is not something which is externally fueled either by money or by fame or by the prestige and all. It is just that desire that this is a journey and I'm going to be there. And they know that there is no Everest. I actually had the chance of asking this question directly to Mr. Amitabh Bachchan in New York in a program 14 years ago. And the question was something about his relation with the Ambani family. And in giving the answer, he said a line when his father asked him about something, and he said, in our profession, which is art and all that, the day I get satisfied is my end date. I am never going to be satisfied with whatever performance I did, because I think there can be always better. I'm assuming unless that drive is there inside Federer, unless that drive is inside Virat Kohli, and unless that drive is inside that candidate who is applying for a job of an IT engineer or a marketing manager, that there is something more to be learned and more can be done, he or she will never have that. That is a fundamental that you have to see.
You are so right that the word quest, the quest is always seeking to be better than where I am, to be better than who you are. It's not about perfection. It's crossing the boundaries of perfection towards excellence. So in terms of perfection, Virat, Sachin, Federer, Nadal, they have all achieved perfection in playing tennis. But now there's a desire that I can do more. Now, it is very true about the high achievers. But majority of us are not highest achievers. We get constricted by environment. Yeah. That this is how it is. Like people in India often say, "Hum Indians aise hi hain." So the question of learning in India is very little. But the quest for knowledge in India is very big. But the question is, how do we embody those skills and how do we seek out more remains a very huge challenge. So in my conversations with people, I always encourage them, try something new. Everybody needs, at any stage of your life, you need a coach and a mentor to show you that, hey, you are not doing what you could do. I mean, here itself in this conversation, post-interview, post our program, I can tell you what you could have said better, or Correct. You could have told me, you can tell me Correct. How I could have done better. Correct. So that quest is to make sure that the mistakes that you make, don't repeat it. And the second is very important to remember that you are responsible for what happens to you. That's very important, that I am going to do better than what I am. But that's where this learning various skills around becomes important. We'll dwell upon this topic soon after this short break. Welcome back. We were talking about learning. For all of us, we are learning everything, something new every day. And today, fortunately, because of technology, our modern guru is Google. But they didn't become Google what they are today by sitting in their room and thinking about it. They acted upon it. So one of the things that we talk about very often is, do not be hesitant to learn. do not be hesitant to accept that I don't know something. The acknowledgement and acceptance that I don't know something is the beginning point of learning for future. In my personal life, what I did was that I called it a 7-year itch in my work life. Because every 7 years or 8 years, I have changed jobs. And I began to think, what did I do? What am I? And what I must become, what I want to become. Because every learning enriches you. You become better. You make a choice to remain as you are or try something else. So that's the point which I'm trying to talk about. That majority of us stop learning. Particularly, this is particularly true of people who have spent about 8 to 10 years in the job, and they suddenly find they were good for nothing for the next 10 years. So in your experience of things, when the mid-manager level, mid to upper level people, their experiences can be very, very different. And how do you learn to become different in doing a job or a profession or being in an enterprise defines who you become. So how do you suggest that people who are in the 10 plus years of work life, because that's the one category of people face the biggest challenge, how to redefine themselves? Have you ever come across a case in which a person with 10, 12 years of experience was boasting about his resume and you found that the resume was trash and not good for anything? What did you do with that scenario?
Interestingly, Vibhuti, we've had instances where I would say not 10 plus years of their career, but we've had some specific instances of people who were looking for a change after 10 plus years of being in one organization or company. And there were some very, very interesting things that we learned while interacting with them or coming across them. And this is very different from people who have been changing a job every 2-3 years by choice or by whatever reason. Is the people that have been in a particular organization, so according to me, they're actually very fortunate that they were able to have a very interesting and challenging career time in the company, because it was good for the company also and good for them. That's why they stayed for 10, 12 years in organization. Now, for whatever reason, whether internal or external, they want to make a change. The biggest challenge that comes in is, will I fit into the marketplace? Because you've been working, you've been so dedicated to that organization, to your role, that you've almost, while you're working in the world, but you've cut yourself out from the external environment. And
that's something which I want you to dwell upon it more, but that's where I wanted you to drive at. The very good point that you raised there. And the point is that you are suddenly, like I said with the quote of Eric Hoffer, that you are ready for a world that doesn't exist anymore. So if you look at, I do scan through the job markets right now, and I find that it will be extremely difficult for anyone to fit into the job descriptions, which, because of analytics and everything else, if you don't fit in there, computer rejects you. How that challenge can be faced at the human level, and how do people change about that?
Again, not the best of answers, but it is not easy.
Again, I'll say,
no, it is not easy. How
do you know that is not the best of
answer?
Yeah,
because it is not easy, meaning it is going to be challenging for that individual, because if he or she is trying to fit in an environment where just the computer or the candidate tracking system is going to select his resume based on whatever words are written from there, it is definitely, he or she is up against a challenge. That's one part. Now let's look at the other side. The other side is that this individual actually has immense business knowledge. So, again, let's take car industry and let's take out AI. Now, car industry will have two parts. That there will be the AI which will drive the car, or which will, mechanize the car. But then there is an entire supply chain that will go into a making of a car, where the steel is procured from, and what are the rules, and what the sizes of cars in, and how do they apply on a road, what government regulations you have to abide with. This knowledge, this gentleman or lady already has. The challenge is, how do you present it to a company? So even if Tesla has to make electric cars, they will need people who are electric battery experts, but they will also need people who have some idea about automobiles. How do I present myself to Tesla that, okay, I have the expertise of how to do it and I am ready to fit in the new environment. I am ready to work with the younger people or the newer people who are working with the battery technology. Again comes back to that learning, and again comes back to me having no inhibitions in asking the questions. Wherever and it's not very easy, wherever I've seen people with different generations working together in a corporate environment very comfortably is when the person who's more senior has been able to come down to the level of the other people and interact with them very comfortably, and learning not in a method of asking like, from a position of strength, but just from a position of being a colleague. The challenge is on me as an individual who has with the one more experience that I'm able to make you comfortable. If you are my younger peer who knows AI. Now you know AI, I know automobiles. How do I make you feel very comfortable, or how do I make you see that, JM also has knowledge which I can leverage upon. I know AI, but I don't know how this whole automobile industry works. Can that be combined?
That's so important, but that again brings back to the same concept that learning is key. Transforming yourself is key. Changing your attitude is key. Because unless and until you commit yourself to being different, no amount of reading a book will help. So sometimes people send along on WhatsApp quotations. And I don't read all quotations. I always tell people that if you were to change by only reading a book of quotations or reading a few quotations, then go and read a book. You don't become an expert in English language by reading the dictionary. You have to implement, practice to speak. Likewise, when you are trying to make a career shift, it's extremely important to prepare yourself. How ready am I to face the new world that I want to aspire to enter? Now that's very important. And I remember reading during my MBA days, I read a quotation somewhere which made a lot of difference. I was trying to get educated with MBA degree. And the first paragraph of that book was that it's truly ironical that the world's largest enterprises, the biggest philanthropic organizations, biggest manufacturing entities were created, conceptualized, and implemented by people who had received least formal education. So think about learning from that point of view, the ability to change and make an impact. So talking about that part of it, a lot of times we humans are confronted with a challenge of transformation. The word transformation is so loosely used, I won't say wrongly used, so loosely used and interpreted that we begin to believe that hum transform ho gaye. But transformation is not magic. If I want to lose weight, it takes time. I have to change a whole lot of practices. What practices or what soft skills and what requirements people must have who are seeking to change to build in themselves?
As you rightly said, transformation or metamorphosis, the word itself can be very simple, but to actually do it in your own life, in your career, so we're talking professionally, is not a simple exercise, but there are a few things that can stand out. So taking this example again of people who have been in a particular career or a company and now looking to transform, we've come across some individuals who've, and this was a great learning for me, is that they have been in a company for more than 10-12 years, and they have said that they intend to be in the company for another 10 years. So they are very committed as long as the company is doing well. But every year as a practice, they prepare a resume and they go for a job interview just to calibrate themselves that in terms of the marketplace, their skills, their compensation expectations, their managerial level, where do they stand? So they do this as an annual health checkup of their corporate life. And and they said that, no, we are not looking to change. But if we were to make a change after 2 years, we should not be caught with a surprise that the world has moved. So they are doing this exercise religiously every year, while being very loyal to their own job and the company. They don't want to change. But they go out in the marketplace, go and meet people, go through the interview process, prepare the resume, see what the market needs are. So they know that, okay, this is the delta of what I know and what the people are looking for.
One of the thoughts that comes to me in my mind, is, going through the many job postings for senior starting levels, I find that the way the job description is written, qualifications are written, it's extremely difficult to find the exact fit. So how do employers find people who are good enough to fulfill 7 requirements but not all 20? They have qualifications, we are listed 15 qualifications or what they ought to have done, but they have 5. But if you put them in the job, they may have been perhaps the best. How does one, as an applicant, a job applicant, if I were to give you my job applicant, and I'll do that with you as a test case, let's run it on a real basis. How does that actually work? How do we persuade people to not feel hesitant about applying for a job because they feel or they fear that they will not make it?
Okay, so let's take this example that, let's take one variable that, you are able to get your resume past the automated system into the hands of a human being that is reading there. Let's assume that they have 20 such applications, 20 such applicants or 30 applicants that are there. A typical recruiter, whether in-house or external, would probably make a decision within a 1-minute time frame of just glancing through the 2 pages and probably on a smartphone, whether they want to take this forward. So your strike time is maximum 1 minute, where either it is a no or let's put in the pipeline. So you have to pass that 1 minute or 2 minute test that in the first glance they feel it. While one is of course your resume, second is, have you really tried to understand what the company is doing and how is it that you can add value to them? How is it that you are different from the other people that are applying? Some things that I've seen is, you don't have to write a whole Bible or a dissertation of 3 pages along with your resume, but from your past experience, can you relate some instances where you think that, I read about this company, it's in the hotel business, though I was not in the hotel business, but this is probably the challenges. This is how I was working in a logistics company, and this is how I tried to address it. If somebody knowledgeable is reading on the other side, they will feel that this individual has taken the time and effort to understand our industry and apply their knowledge to what they have learned.
It's very important, because that means, you said it very beautifully, is that you make yourself relevant from the company that you want to work for. So if I have been, say for example, in automobile industry, I know everything about automobile, but if I want to move to AI, I have to make sure that I make myself relevant in the AI domain. So that's a very valuable advice you gave. So I would particularly want to know from you, if you came across any challenging case that the person in your assessment was really good at doing X, but he was in the wrong lane called Y. Were you able to make such a shift in that person's life?
That generally we have found has happened. There are 2 ways a hiring process goes about. One is you have the traditional hiring where you present your resume, it goes to the recruitment department and multiple interviews and all that. In most cases, I have realized is that when you're going through that chain, and let's take again the hotel and logistics example, if that person who's looking for a position in the hotel industry, their tendency would be to more look at profiles which are coming from another hotel industry background. And because that's how they are, and that's what the interview panel or people would like, and that's also right, because that individual who's coming from hotel industry would know the language of the industry, would know how the norms of the industry. This person who's coming from logistics will have to learn all that. However, if this individual gets an opportunity to meet somebody like impactful in this company, so just on an email basis, it is very difficult. But if somehow this individual from logistics company gets a chance to meet a senior person from that hotel industry, and he or she is able to tell them that, look, in my logistics company also, I changed 5 roles because our company's direction changed. But I was able to work in the day, learn in the night, figure out the new logistics packages that we were using, and that's how I learned it. And I became from just a team member to a team leader and to a manager that was managing the whole territory. But now that company is going through stagnation or is selling, and I feel that if you give me this opportunity, I think I'll be able to do it. I have felt a good number of times that individual on the other side who has actually run businesses from ground up is ready to take that shot. Why? Because he or she has also grown up this way. This individual may not get a chance that much in a corporate kind of setting, because there again the barriers will come. He doesn't know or she doesn't know hotel industry. But in a company which has been started by individuals, they will be ready to take a bet, because in that individual they will see themselves 10 years back.
That's very, very, very important point. And that's important. As we have a few minutes left, the couple of things that are very important I want to share with you, and I will certainly seek your comment in a very brief way. There are value systems that define our life. You know, like I said to you earlier on, I can't lie. I will never lie. I don't lie. So the question is, if I get into a job where I have to fend off and indulge in misrepresentation, politically correct statements, don't go for that job if you don't want to do that. But there is a value systems of what I call accountability, commitment, trust, honesty, integrity, being a stand who you are. What would you consider that everybody does it so that you are able to help them? So people like me, if I want a change of job, I will come to you. Why would anybody come to you? How would you help somebody break through?
Okay, so coming to your point about value system, I'll use the terminology that we often use in our HR field, and that they called as the culture fit.
Correct.
And that culture fit, according to me, is as relevant or probably even more relevant than the competencies of a particular field, because the hiring people know that the competencies required tomorrow will change. But if that individual has the culture fit of that, and we can all define teamwork and humble and all that, but each company is different.
Right.
There are companies which really support risk taking. Then there are some companies which only talk about risk taking, but they don't want to support it. And a person will be different.
We have 30 seconds for you now.
So the best thing for that individual is to really check within themselves whether they are fit for what kind of company. That's the exercise that we do with
Goes back to the question where we started off with. Find your talent, define it, empower that talent with skill sets, and drive your search for a job with a value system of your own, your value systems, where you fit. And that's perhaps the most important learning I had, is that I'm not good at everything. Even as a banker, I may have been good in element A, I may not be good in element B. So let's pursue A. It's part of the talent.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to you, Jitendraji, for coming to this program. I hope to welcome you again in the next program.
Thank you very much, Vibhuti. It was a pleasure to interact with you.
As India celebrated 26th January as Republic Day, we know that we have enjoyed the visuals and celebrations, the messages of it coming from India. Next week, we will talk about the state of the Republic of India, intensely and deeply. Thank you for being with us today, and have a wonderful weekend, and look forward to speaking with you again next week.